Alright, so this is Wusik Station 10, and I want to show some of the changes and new stuff. And I'm going to go through all the interface in a minute. But first, let's take an overview of the scrolling method for the layers. So now we have can have multiple layers, and each layer can have multiple sound generators, like the sample player, super oscillator, draw wave oscillator, multi-oscillator, and stuff like that. LFOs can be added to in pairs just to keep the interface in a continual show, just so it doesn't look a bit weird. The modulation sequencer also can be added as many as you want. Then we have the master section, and we also have these like a pause button here on the right that shows the layers in a horizontal way instead of vertical way. So let's add another layer. The layer. So we're going to add a 4 oscillators layer. Oh, sorry. I added 4 oscillators to my layer. So add to layer. It's going to add sound generators to the layer. Sorry. So I added 4 oscillators here on the layer. I can see those if I click in here. I'm just quickly showing, but I'm going to explain in a minute, step by step, okay? Now I'm going to new layer. Sorry, now it's going to be correct. Draw wave oscillator, and there we have the draw wave oscillator. If I go to the regular layer scrolling, you can see here layer 2 of 2. Then you have the draw wave oscillator. You can also press 1, 2 on the keyboard and it goes directly, or just use the space bar to toggle one and the other. It's just going to go to any number of layers you add. Let's say you have 4 layers, going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 with the space bar. If you click here on the options, you can see the key shortcuts, and it's going to show key shortcuts. You can see here spacebar cycle layers, 0 to 9 browse layers. 0 is layer number 10 if you have, otherwise it's going to go to the last layer. You have show modulation wires, show file browser, and all that is done by just those links in here. This one is show the modulation wires. I don't have any modulation right now. The X parameters, when you click it, it shows in red for a brief moment, and then goes away, so you can check some of the extras. So let me add to this layer. Add to layer. Where is this super oscillator? Now I can see here super oscillator. If I click on the X parameters, it's going to hide or show the X parameters too. It's just a way to have the interface more clean, without too many parameters at once. But you can also click on here on the pause and select this guy here to see multiple sound generators at the same time. So those are the main changes, but there are other changes too that I'm going to talk in a minute. So first, the interface. So you can resize the interface, and by resizing it, you can see more of the things in a vertical way, or you can just resize it to adjust to your monitor's resolution. And the graphics are nearly 4K, so they will look very good on most monitors, most resolutions. And we have the 2 modes of the interface, which is set by this icon here on the right, next to the file browser. So I have the file browser in here that you can show and hide, and also have the horizontal versus the vertical showing of the layers, which sometimes can help seeing things. Then here on the left you have the hide modulations wires. Let's say let me add a modulation envelope here to the fine tuning. You can see that it shows a wire now from the modulation to the fine tuning. I can hide it if I want. or show. Just use that link for that. Then you have the show extra parameters. That's going to do just as that. It's going to show extra parameters that are otherwise hiding. And this also works on the horizontal display. If you click the show X parameters, it's going to show extra stuff here for the layer. In this case, the tuning fine, the XY modulation. Let me hide my wires. The 4 MIDI controllers, the modulation sequencer, the 2 LFOs. But if you have more than 2 LFOs, it's going to show that. So if I add to the layer 2 more LFOs, it's going to add another line in here. I can show and hide those with the extra parameters option. Now, on the interface for each layer, everything is pretty much self-explanatory. So I have the 3 types of modulation envelopes in here. So I have the amplitude envelope, the filter envelope, which is already assigned to the filter cutoff. You just have to adjust the amount, and then adjust the envelope here. Sorry about that. Let me take some water. So you just adjust the envelope range in this case, and then it's going to use the filter envelope directly. You don't have to create a modulation between the two. And then you have the modulation envelopes, which you can add more envelopes, so you can have more than one envelope. That was nasty. Then the other option, let me see, then you have the sound generators. On the filter is just like a version 9. You can add and replace the filters. It's the same filters. And here on the layer, you can add new layers or add to the layer different sound generators, the LFOs and modulation sequencer, or the wave sequencer. So let me add the wave sequencer in here. So it's going to be on the bottom of the layer. Oh, here it is. So I can now use the wave sequencer in any way I want. Just keep in mind that the wave sequencer is going to work best with the sample player, because the layer options is going to affect only the sample player. Otherwise, it's going to act as an advanced arpeggiator for the other sound generators, like the multi-oscillator, super oscillator, and the other ones. The wave oscillator, audio looper. So, okay, you have the voices here, number of voice, and in the options you have the auto glide, legato, retrigger, and still same note. Just so you don't have too much stuff on the interface, because those are rarely used. And this guy here is just the mute of the on and off for the layers output. So now it's not outputting anything, just a single layer. Sorry for the loud noise. I should reduce the sound a bit. Okay. So everything else is just pretty much like version 9. We have the sample player, the multi-oscillator, which is the 3 oscillator, but in this case you can add 1, 2, 3, 4, or more than that. And we have the LFOs here on the bottom, and I also have this plus sign, which is going to add more. Don't have to go to the layer and select add, and the same goes for the modulation sequencer. Just click on the plus and it adds more. Then you have the insert effect for this layer, the arpeggiator, the XY pad, the 4 MIDI modulation source, and then you have this option here for the auto note, key switch, and sticky keys. Those are the same as version 9.2, just goes into another menu. And then we start the layer number 2, which I add adjusted draw wave oscillator. I improved the editing a bit. You can see that it's following the mouse path and works much better. I also improved a lot the wave sequencer. It's working a lot better. Then at the bottom, we have the master area, which is going to be the summing of all the layers. Goes through here. Then you have the 2 send effects. So if I add an effect in here, then I can use this on each layer. I have my oscilloscope in here, and then the parameters for the master, like volume, panning, and stuff like that. So here on the layer top area, you have the send FX1 and 2. And it should be working correctly. Let me check. Volume. Yeah, it's working. When I hit panic, it cancels the effect, so that's why I not hear the tail. But it's just working as it should be. And here on the options, one thing to keep in mind that these squares with 3 lines are always options for something. In this case, this is the global options. Then here on the filter, you have 2, so it's options for the filter. If you go to sample player, so it's going to be options for the sample player, including the option to remove it or to move it up and down. Let's say I want, just for cosmetic reasons, I want the sample player to be on the bottom of my layer. I can move it down until it's on the bottom of the layer. Let's say I want this guy here to move up. Then it's going to be the multi-oscillator, sample player, multi-oscillator. The sound's not going to change anything. It's just more of a cosmetic thing. The wave sequencer, the option is just to remove the wave sequencer. The LFOs has some options too, and you can remove 2 LFOs at once. And it goes like this. And for the layers, it's just the layer X options. The XY pad also has some options. Invert values and smooth values. Then you go to the master, doesn't have any options. And any parameter, you can right click it and select add modulation, and it's going to show at the top, select the modulation source. Now you can look for a modulation source. Let's say I wanted a LFO. I can go to the LFO. It shows the red square. And I'm going to click show modulation. Let me resize so you can see. Okay, it's going there to the LFO now. Another way to see this without resizing, just go to the horizontal mode and select show extras, and this is showing now the LFO going to the frequency of the first filter. So it's just easier to look in this like this. So let me go back there. So my frequency here on the filter. Okay, so it's showing now that the LFO is acting on the frequency. I can right click it and select edit modulations. And now I can select if I want to invert this, like the minimum and the maximum is now going to invert, or if I want the minimum to be something and maximum something else. You can see that it's barely doing anything. And I can select also to remove. I can select to multiply or add one modulation to another. So if I add another modulation here to the filter frequency, it's going to show up in here. So that's how you're going to handle modulation. Now let's go to the file browser The file browser is pretty much the same. I haven't changed anything. I may create a new file browser for presets in a later time. Not promising, but I do hope to create that. But it's just the same old one where you can select things. You can select here on the options, search presets. Let's say piano. Oh, man, type so bad. And it's going to search for all the piano presets. And it's on from my SSDs very quickly. And that's pretty much for the file browser, because there's not too much thing new in here. Let's take a look now on the horizontal way of seeing layers. So let's turn off the X parameters. So this is the basic view. We have layer 1, layer 2, and a master layer. You can see the envelope here. You can select which envelope you want to see. So I'm seeing now the amplitude envelope. And I'm looking at the single oscillator, where I can select it to show the sample player if I want. It allows me to change which object, the sound generator I want to see. The same goes for the filter. I can select another filter in here. Then we have the effect sands, the key zones and velocity zones. And here on the sample player, we have the options. And then we have this square. The square is going to show extra stuff for the sample player. It's going to be volume, panning, tone, fine, and modulation. And if I want to see all the sound generators, I can go here on the layer and select that square too. That square is going to show all the sound generators. So I can see all the sound generators at one time. If I click here on the square again for the sample player, it's going to show the sample player instead again. Let's click on the square again here on the left. And now you can see there's the layer options, which is going to show the auto node, key switch, stick keys, and the ARP is going to show here too, so I don't have to put on the interface the arpeggiator. And the E is going to show the insert effect instead of the envelopes. But most of the time you're not going to use an insert effect, so you have the envelope instead. And here on the bottom we have the two synth effects, the oscilloscope, and some master volume options with tuning fine too. And then here on the X, show extra parameters is going to show everything else that was not showing before. For the instance, the modulation sequencer, the LFOs, and the wave sequencer first lane. I can change in here if I want. So show volume. So I can see the first lane at least. Otherwise I have to quit and go there on the oscillator on the wave sequencer and see everything else. But I can see things from here too. So it's just an easier way to quickly see things. But this works best with a high resolution, nearly full screen mode, because it's very hard to get full screen modes on some hosts. But at least you have this option here to quickly see the modulations going from one place to another, and it's just a better way to edit things. So for now, this is it. I will keep improving a few things as I go, and I hope you guys really enjoy it, because it was a lot of work. And thanks for watching.